The alien doctor dropped the human blood sample. And for the first time in Deathworld Council history, a council chamber went into emergency lockdown because of one drop of red blood.
Gentlemen, level 8 is active.
No
the
one
crisis
expected
is here.
this.
What are the projections?
Not Ambassador Ray
Catastrophic.
Calder.
We must act now.
Not the council. Eldars. And definitely not the Briar medical team.
Anomaly
moment
detected.
the
All
vial
stations
cracked,
report. Sector 7
everything
unstable.
changed.
Redirecting now.
The trajectory locked.
Ray
Good.
stood in
Monitor
the center
closely.
of the Deathworld Council medical chamber. Okay, the floor was polished crystal. The air was filtered to perfection. The room was designed to handle the most dangerous lifeforms in the galaxy.
Threat vector confirmed.
today,
Initiating countermeasures.
alarms
Flanks are
screamed.
exposed. Rerouting power. Defenses holding.
Red
Awaiting
lights
instructions.
flashed across the curved walls. Containment breach detected. The Briar Doctor jerked backward, her many legs scraping loudly. Against the floor, her yellow acidic blood samples were safely sealed on the opposite table. But the human vial, it had slipped. A single crimson
We
drop
stand
had
at the
touched
precipice of
sterile
destiny.
surface.
As the strategic apex
The
species,
air
we will guide the
itself seemed to
cosmos.
tense. The cellular doctor froze, her blue tentacles going completely still. That was never a good sign. The Lizip medical observer stepped backward, green. Veins pulsing faster inside its translucent body. Seal the chamber. Someone shouted in translated tones. Thick containment barriers dropped from the ceiling. Ray blinked. What just happened? He asked. No one answered him directly. The Briar Doctor slowly leaned forward, her antennae trembling. It is reacting, she whispered. Reacting. Ray looked down at the floor. The red drop of human blood shimmered slightly under the lights. Then, the metal beneath it began to discolor, not melting, not burning, but corroding. Very slowly, very deliberately, the Lizip's voice trembled through the translator. That oxidation level. Impossible? Ray frowned. It's just hemoglobin. Iron-based oxygen transport. The Cilia Doctor's eyes locked onto him. No, she said carefully. It is more than iron. The chamber screens flickered to life. Molecular scans began. Running automatically, dot results flashed rapidly. Oxygen density. High dot iron concentration. Extreme. Reactive potential. Catastrophic outside atmospheric balance. The Briar Doctor's voice grew tight. Your blood binds oxygen with violent efficiency. Ray gave a confused laugh. That's normal. For you, the Cellier replied. She stepped closer to the containment field. For most Deathworld species, free oxygen at that concentration is toxic. It destroys tissue. It destroys tissue. Burns cells from the inside. The Lizip added softly, and your circulatory system carries it willingly. Silence, heavy silence, Ray. Swallow Jasane. We are walking oxidation engines. The Briar's antennae dipped slowly. Yes. The alarm quieted, but the lockdown remained active. Outside the chamber window, council guards gathered. Ray suddenly felt very small. You thought iron-based blood was primitive? He said carefully. Short lifespan. Oxidative damage. Yes. The Cellier admitted. And now? The three alien doctors looked at each other, then back at him. Now, the Briar said softly, we are wondering how your species survives itself. Ray looked at his hands. Same hands he'd had his whole life. Warm, normal, human, but to them. He was carrying liquid rust and controlled chemical destruction in his veins, and he didn't even feel it. The Cellier tapped her console. Ambassador? Ray, we must expand this biological exchange. Ray forced a smile. Define expand. The Lizip's green veins brightened. We need to test the limits. The Briar leaned closer. How much damage can a human body endure? Before failing? Ray blinked. That sounds less like science, and more like a challenge. The Celia's tentacles curled slightly. On most worlds, it would be ish. She held his gaze. But this is the Death World Council. And for the first time, Ray realized something important. They weren't afraid of humans. They were curious. Very, very curious. The chamber doors remained sealed. Containment fields hummed quietly around the single red stain on the floor. Ray stood still, trying not to look like the most dangerous biological object in the room. The Celia doctor was the first to speak. "We require clarification," she said calmly. "Human blood carries oxygen at this concentration at all times." "Yes," Ray answered. "Every second." The Briar's mandibles clicked slowly. "And oxygen is not considered corrosive or toxic to you." Ray blinked. "It's air." Silence again, heavy, uncomfortable. The Lizip stepped forward, green veins glowing brighter. "On our world's oxygen, concentration never exceeds 7% of atmospheric composition," it explained. "Above 12%, organic tissue begins to destabilize." Ray frowned. "Earth is 21%. The Briar recoiled slightly. 21. Even the Celia's tentacles stiffened. "You evolved in an environment that continuously corrodes you," Ray shrugged. "We call it aging." That word echoed strangely in the chamber. The Celia turned to her console again. "We would like to perform controlled oxygen stress analysis." Ray crossed his arms. "You want to?" "What?" "We wish to observe your biological resilience," the Briar added. "Gradual increase." "Safe parameters?" Ray hesitated. This was no longer about blood samples. This was about proving something. He thought about Earth, about the Death World, Council's doubts, about humans being considered short-lived iron creatures. He straightened. "Define safe." Minutes later, Ray found himself seated inside a transparent cylindrical chamber. Not a prison, a test environment. Atmospheric controls surrounded him. Outside the chamber, the three alien doctors observed through layered shielding. The Celia spoke. "Through his neural implant, we will increase oxygen concentration slowly. Inform us of any discomfort." Ray nodded. "This is basically altitude training in reverse." The Briar tilted her head. "Explain." "Humans already train under extreme oxygen conditions. We push our lungs." The Celia gave a small signal. The chamber hissed softly. "Oxygen level, 25%. Ray inhaled deeply. "Feels normal." 30%. The Briar monitored molecular scans. No cellular breakdown detected. 35%. The Lizip's veins pulsed faster. This exceeds safe threshold for council species. Ray flexed his fingers. Still breathing. 40%. The Celia's tentacles began to move uneasily. "Ambassador, reports sensations." "A little dry," Ray said. "Maybe a mild headache." The Briar leaned closer to her instruments. "In our physiology, this level causes oxidative tissue collapse." Ray laughed lightly. "Guess we're built different." 45%. The room outside grew tense. The oxygen glow indicator shifted to deep amber. Sweat formed on Ray's forehead. His pulse increased. Heart rate elevated. The Lizip noted. "Yeah," Ray said, rolling his shoulders. "That's called adrenaline." The Briar's antennae twitched sharply. "Your body accelerates under stress." "Yep, 50%. A warning tone sounded outside the chamber. Even the Celia hesitated. "This concentration is lethal to nearly all catalogued life." Ray wiped sweat from his brow. Feels like intense training. But I'm fine. The molecular scanner displayed something unexpected. Cellular activity increasing. Repair mechanisms activating. The briar froze. It adapts. The lizard whispered. Your cells compensate in real time. Ray inhaled again. Lungs burning slightly now, but not failing. Welcome to Earth, he said quietly. The cellular finally lowered the levels. The chamber hissed as oxygen returned to standard Earth percentage. Ray stepped out, slightly flushed, but standing tall. The three alien doctors stared at him, not in fear, not in disgust, in realization. You live in fire, the briar murmured, and call it air. The Lizip added softly, you are biochemical reactors. Ray smiled faintly. Most humans just call it Tuesday. The Celia folded her hands. This test was minor. Controlled? Her yellow eyes locked onto him. But now we understand something important. Ray tilted his head. And what's that? She answered calmly. If your species can survive an atmosphere that corrodes most life. Her tentacles slowly curled. What else can humans survive? Ray felt the shift. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was the beginning of respect. Or something close to it. And outside the chamber, a silent message was already being sent to the Death World Council. Subject, humanity, classification. Review required. The oxygen test changed everything. Not officially, not yet, but inside the chamber. Something had shifted. The alien doctors no longer looked at Ray as a fragile, short-lived creature. Now they looked at him like a mystery, a dangerous one. The folded her hands behind her back. Oxygen tolerance confirmed, she said calmly. Now we evaluate structural resilience. Ray raised an eyebrow. Define structural. The briar doctor stepped forward. Pain response. Tissue damage tolerance. Neural endurance. Ray exhaled slowly. So this is where things get uncomfortable. The Lizip's green veins glowed softly. All Death World Council species undergo similar evaluation. Ray looked at them carefully. You've all done this? The Celia nodded once. Yes, Ray thought for a moment. He could refuse, but he didn't. Instead, he rolled up his sleeve again. Let's see what you've got. He was guided to a reinforced examination platform, no restraints, just sensors. The briar, exclaimed the procedure. Controlled microlaceration. Surface only. We measure neural response and recovery rate. Ray gave a small half-smile. You mean? A cut? The briar paused. Yes. Ray almost laughed. On Earth, we call that daily life. A fine instrument extended from the briar's limb dot. It looked precise. Surgical Decelia's tentacles slowed slightly. The Lizit watched carefully. The blade touched Ray's forearm. A thin, clean line opened across his skin. Red welled instantly. The room froze. The blood shimmered under the light. Ray hissed softly. Yeah, that stings. The briar stared at the wound. No panic response? Ray shrugged. It's a cut. The Lizip scanned the wound. Coagulation beginning immediately. The Celia leaned closer. Platelet activation rapid. Within seconds, the bleeding slowed. Within a minute, it stopped entirely. The briar's antennae trembled. You seal your own damage? Ray flexed his fingers. Basic biology. The Celia looked thoughtful. Increased stimulus. The briar hesitated. Ray nodded. Go ahead. The second test was deeper. Not dangerous, but intentional. The blade pressed harder. A controlled incision ray. Gritted his teeth. His heart rate jumped. The sensors displayed spikes. But he didn't scream. He didn't thrash. He stayed still, breathing through it. Pain threshold elevated. The Lizip, whispered. The Briar leaned closer. In our species, this stimulus triggers immobilization. Ray's jaw tightened. On Earth, pain means move faster. The Cellular studied his eyes. You grow stronger under threat. Ray looked at her. Most predators don't stop because they're hurt. The scanners beeped again. Adrenal response. Confirmed, the Lizip said. Stress hormones increasing muscular output. The Briar stared at the readings. You convert injury into power. Ray smiled faintly. Sometimes. Then something unexpected happened. The cut began closing faster than predicted. The alien monitors recalculated. Regeneration rate accelerating. The Lizip said. The Cellular's eyes narrowed. You are actively repairing? Ray looked at his arm. The wound was already shrinking. We call that healing. The Briar whispered something quietly in her native clicks. The translator struggled but rendered resilient. Aggressively resilient. The Cellular straightened. No sedation required. No neural dampening. She looked directly at Ray. Do humans feel fear of injury? Ray thought carefully. Of course. And yet you face it willingly. The Cellular's tentacles curled slowly. That is not survival instinct. Ray raised an eyebrow. What is it then? The Lizip answered softly. Dominance instinct. Silence filled the room. Not fearful, respectful. The Briar finally spoke again. There is one final evaluation. Ray looked at her steadily. What now? The Cellular's voice lowered slightly. Combat stress simulation. Ray's heartbeat slowed. Now this was different. Is that standard for council species? He asked. Yes, Ray nodded slowly. Then let's make it standard for humans too. The Lizip's veins brightened intensely. Ambassador, you understand this will involve real threat stimuli. Ray smiled faintly. On Earth, that's called growing up. The chamber lights dimmed, the test room reconfigured, walls shifted, environmental controls changed. The Briar whispered quietly. If his species survives oxygen, endures pain, accelerates under injury. The Cellular finished the sentence. Then what happens? When he fights. Ray stood in the center of the chamber, car, breathing steady, iron-rich, blood pumping through his veins. The Death World Council had just learned something important. Humans don't just survive damage, they evolve inside it. And the next test would prove whether Earth deserved its classification. The chamber lights dimmed to deep amber. The smooth medical walls shifted, sliding apart with a heavy mechanical hum. Panels retracted. Steel barriers locked into place. The medical room was gone. In its place stood a controlled combat arena. Ray slowly turned in a circle. Okay? He said under his breath. That escalated fast. Above him, the observation platform sealed shut. The Cellular's voice entered his mind through the translator. This is a standard Death World Council resilience trial. The Briar added, every member species undergoes it before full recognition. The Lizip's green veins pulsed softly as it explained. The simulation recreates predator threat patterns from extreme environments. Ray stretched his shoulders. And what exactly counts as extreme to you? Silence. Then the floor trembled. Section of the arena wall split open. Something stepped out. It was mechanical. Four-legged. Low to the ground. Sleek armor. Plating glowing sensor eyes. Sharp carbon steel fangs. Ray exhaled slowly. A robot, Wolf. The Celia corrected him. Predatory assault drone. Calibrated to Briarworld standards. Ray smirked. So. Angry metal dog. The drone crouched then it charged fast. Faster than Ray. Expected it crossed the arena in seconds. Ray barely had time to react. The impact knocked him backward. He rolled hard across the floor. Pain flared in his shoulder. The drone pivoted instantly. For a second strike. Outside the arena. The Briar's antennae twitched sharply. Impact force equivalent to bone fracture threshold. But Ray was already moving. He didn't wait. He lunged sideways as the drone snapped at him. Teeth scraped the floor where his neck had been. Ray grabbed the edge of the machine's head and shoved, not strong enough to stop it completely, but enough to redirect. The drone adjusted instantly. Adaptive targeting. It rammed him again. This time, its fangs grazed his forearm. Blood appeared. The red against steel. The Lizip's sensors lit up. Damage sustained. The Celia watched closely. Observe hormonal surge. Ray felt it. The rush, the heat. Adrenaline flooded his system. Pain sharpened. Breathing deepened. Focus narrowed. He smiled, not because it was funny, because now he understood the pattern. The drone attacked again. Ray didn't dodge this time. He stepped forward. Took the hit to his shoulder deliberately. Used the impact. Wrapped both arms around the machine's neck joint. He slammed his knee into its central sensor panel. Hard, metal cracked. The drone snarled. Electronically. Claws tore into his side. Ray grunted, but he didn't let go. He grabbed one of its exposed power cables. Ripped sparks. Exploded. The machine staggered. The Briar whispered softly. He increases aggression under injury. Ray drove his elbow into the sensor plate. Again, and again, and again, until the glowing eyes flickered out. The drone collapsed in a heap of smoking. Metal silence filled the arena. Ray stood there breathing heavily, blood running down his arm, bruised, cut, but standing. He looked up at the observation window. Is that it? He called. The Celia's tentacles moved slowly. Most species disengage when injured. Ray shrugged slightly. Most species aren't persistence predators. The Lizip asked softly, explain. Ray wiped blood from his hand. On Earth, we don't outrun prey. He met their gaze. We outlast it. The Briar's antennae froze. Clarify. Ray's voice was calm now. We chase until it collapses. He gestured to the broken machine. You built a sprint predator. He tilted his head. We're marathon hunters. Inside the observation chamber, something shifted. This wasn't just durability. This wasn't just pain tolerance. This was strategy. Humans didn't stop when damaged. They adapted. They learned. They pushed through. The Celia spoke quietly. If placed in a prolonged threat environment, your species continues. Ray nodded once. Until the threat stops moving. The arena doors opened. Medical drones entered to scan him. Minor injuries. Elevated heart rate. But stable. The Lizip whispered. Biological aggression loop confirmed. The Briar added softly. recovery mechanisms already active. The Celia folded her hands. This changes the classification. Ray tilted his head. What classification? The Celia looked at him with something new in her eyes. Not curiosity, not fear, recognition. You are not merely iron-blooded. She paused. You are a sustained predator species. Ray walked toward the exit, bruised but upright. On Earth, he said casually, that's just called human? Behind him, the Deathworld Council medical systems updated silently. Iron-based circulatory system. High oxygen tolerance. Rapid regeneration. Combat persistence. Predator psychology. New designation pending. And for the first time, the Council began to understand why Earth was rated so high, but one question remained. The Briar finally voiced it. If this was controlled simulation, her antennae trembled slightly. What would an uncontrolled human do? Ray smiled faintly. You really don't want to find out? The chamber of the Deathworld Council had never been this quiet. 3 elevated platforms rose from the curved walls. Just like before, but this time, Ray did not stand alone as a curious specimen. This time, he stood as evidence. Behind him, projected in holographic detail, were the results: oxygen tolerance, extreme tissue recovery, accelerated pain response, functional under stress, predator persistence, confirmed the Celia Elder spoke first. Ambassador Ray Calder of Earth. Your species classification is under formal review. Ray folded his hands calmly behind his back. Under review in what direction? The Briar Elder leaned forward. Massive segmented body shifting. Upward. A soft murmur spread through the chamber. Representatives from other Deathworld species observed from the shadows. The Lizipelder's green veins pulsed brighter. Your species was initially categorized as Level 5 adaptive Deathworld organisms. Ray raised an eyebrow. And now? The Celia's tentacles slowly curled. Level 8. The air seemed to shift. Level -8. Only to Council species held that designation. The Briar and the Celia. The Lizip were Level -7. Ray inhaled slowly. What changed? He asked, though he already knew. The Briar answered directly. You survive oxidative environments, lethal to most known life. The Lizip added softly. You convert injury into enhanced output. The Celia finished. And you demonstrate controlled aggression with strategic restraint. Ray smiled faintly. Controlled? The Briar tilted her head. You chose not to destroy the Predator unit once disabled. Ray shrugged slightly. It stopped being a threat. Silence followed. That answer mattered more than the fight itself. The Celia Elder stood. However, Ray knew that word would come. Level 8 classification carries implications. He nodded, such as. The Lizip spoke carefully. Level 8 species are considered potential destabilizers in uncontrolled environments. Ray's eyes narrowed slightly. You think we're dangerous? The Briar corrected gently. We think you are powerful. The Celia's yellow gaze locked onto him. And unpredictable. A new holographic display appeared. Earth rotated slowly. In the center of the chamber, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. Your world supports over 8 billion individuals of this biology, the Celia said. Yes. And you wage war among yourselves. Ray did not flinch. Yes. The Briar's antennae dipped slightly. A Level 8 species that practices internal conflict. The Lizip's voice was almost whisper-soft. That is statistically rare. Ray's jaw tightened slightly. We are not perfect. The Celia responded calmly. Perfection is not the concern. She paused. Scalars. Another projection appeared. Human history. Industry. Space. Travel. Persistence. Adaptation. Every time humans faced extinction-level events, they adapted. They survived. They advanced. The chamber remained silent. The Briar finally spoke. We must vote. Ray felt the weight of that. This was no longer about oxygen or cuts or one mechanical predator. This was about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Celia's tentacles slowed. Option 1. Maintain level 5 classification 2, limit diplomatic elevation. The Lizip added option 2. Elevate to level 8 with council privileges. Ray remained still. He could not influence the vote now. The Briar cast her vote first. Elevation. The Lizip's veins brightened. Elevation. All eyes turned to the Celia Elder. She studied Ray carefully. Long, hard. You embarrassed my granddaughter? Ray blinked. What? Her tentacles twitched slightly in what might have been amusement. She reports high emotional intelligence alongside physical resilience. Ray felt his face heat again. That was a misunderstanding. Indeed, she said calmly. Then she straightened. Elevation confirmed. A low harmonic tone filled the chamber. Classification updated. Earth Level 8 Death World. Humanity recognized. Apex persistent species. Ray exhaled slowly. It was done, but then, the Lizip Elder spoke again. There remains one final consideration. Ray looked up. Which is? The Briar's mandibles clicked softly. If humanity is level 8. The Celia finished the sentence. Then you qualify for Council Military Partnership. The chamber grew heavier. Military Partnership. That meant something serious. Ray's voice stayed calm. You're expecting a threat. The Celia nodded slowly. Yes. A new hologram appeared. Deep space. Unidentified signatures. Approaching. Council territory. Power readings immense, and growing closer. The Briar turned toward Ray. Level 8 species defend the Council. The Lizip added quietly. Will humanity stand with us? Ray looked at the hologram, then at the three elders, then back at Earth, rotating silently behind him. A small smile touched his lips. You classified us correctly. The Celia tilted her head. And that means... Ray's voice was steady. It means when something bigger shows up. His eyes hardened slightly. We don't run. The council chamber went completely silent. Because for the first time, they realized humanity wasn't just surviving its death world. It was training. On it, the hologram changed. Earth faded from the center of the chamber. In its place appeared something else. Dark. Massive. Moving through deep space. Unidentified fleet signatures. Organic hull structures. Gravity. Distortions around each vessel. The Lizip's voice lowered. They call themselves the Vorith Dominion. The Briar's antennae twitched sharply. Level 9, bioassimilator species. Ray frowned slightly. Level 9. The Celia nodded. They do not negotiate. The projection zoomed in. Entire star systems marked in red. Planets stripped. Biospheres. Consumed. No survivors? Ray's jaw tightened. And they're heading here. Yes, the Celia said. And they have never encountered sustained resistance. Ray crossed his arms. Well, that's unfortunate for them. The chamber went silent again. The Briar studied him. You do not show fear? Ray tilted his head slightly. Oh, I feel fear. He paused. But fear is just energy. The lizard's green veins pulsed softly. Explain. Ray gestured toward the hologram. You're looking at predators that overwhelm fast. The Briar nodded. Double quotes. Yes. Rapid domination. Overwhelming force. Ray smiled faintly. And you're expecting us to match that? The Celia's eyes narrowed slightly. Should we not? Ray shook his head. That's not how humans fight. Hours later, Ray stood aboard the human diplomatic cruiser, orbiting the Council world. A secure channel opened. Earth High Command filled the screen. Admiral Kane appeared. Report. Ambassador. Ray didn't waste time. Level 9, Invasion Force heading toward Council space. Council requesting Level 8 military partnership. The Admiral's expression did not change. Assessment? Ray answered calmly. They overwhelm quickly. Recommended. Strategy. Ray's eyes flicked toward the view of the alien fleet hologram on his side display. Stretch the fight. The Admiral understood instantly. Persistence warfare. Ray nodded. Double quotes. Yes, sir. The Admiral gave one short nod. Authorization. Granted. Deploy the 3rd and 5th expeditionary groups. Transmission ended. Days later, deep space near the Council border. The Vorith fleet entered the system. Massive living warships. Organic tendrils. Extended outward. Gravity distortion fields active. They expected fear. They expected retreat. Instead, they found humans. The first contact wasn't a massive battle, it was harassment. Human ships appeared at long range, fired, then vanished. Hit supply vessels, then retreated, destroyed sensor relays, then disappeared again. The Vorith pushed forward. Aggressively, humans withdrew, always just beyond full. Engagement. Hours turned into days, days into weeks. The Vorith were confused. Why not commit fully? Why not defend territory? Why run? Because humans weren't running. They were pacing the fight back. In the Council chamber, the Briar watched tactical feeds. They do not attempt decisive confrontation. The Lyzip analyzed data streams. They prolong engagement. The Celia's tentacles moved slowly. They are exhausting the enemy. The Vorith relied on rapid conquest, shock, fear, overwhelming. Strength. But humans did not collapse. They did not surrender. They did not break. They adapted. They repaired. They rotated crews. They hunted supply lines. They targeted weak points. Every small engagement cost the Vorith energy, time, momentum, and humans never stopped. 3 months later, the Vorith fleet slowed. Biological strain. Detected. Resources depleted. Internal conflict rising. Their model of dominance required quick submission. Humanity refused to submit. And so the Vorith did something they had never done before. They retreated back in Council space. Silence filled the chamber once more. The hologram now showed Vorith signatures. Pulling away, leaving the Briar's mandibles clicked slowly. They withdrew. The Lyzip's veins dimmed slightly. Without decisive battle, the Celia looked toward Ray. You defeated a level 9 species without annihilation? Ray shook his head. No, he met her gaze evenly. We outlasted them. The Celia Elder stood tall. Reclassification
Gentlemen, level 8
update.
is active. The crisis is here.
The
What are
chamber
projections?
stilled.
Catastrophic. We must
Humanity
act
is
now.
hereby recognized, not only as level 8, she paused, but as strategic.
Anomaly
apex
detected.
species.
All stations report. Sector 7
The Brian
unstable.
nodded
Redirecting
slowly.
now.
Trajectory locked.
Good.
Predators
Monitor
of
closely.
endurance. The lizard added softly. Specialists in prolonged resistance. Ray allowed himself a small, tired smile. On Earth, he said quietly,
Threat vector
we
confirmed.
call that
Initiating
stubborn.
countermeasures. Flanks are exposed. Rerouting
Later,
power. Defenses
aboard
holding.
his
Awaiting
ship.
instructions.
Ray looked at Earth, rotating in the distance. 8 billion iron-blooded oxidation engines. Short lifespans. Constant internal conflict. Imperfect. Loud. Emotional, but persistent. Always persistent.
We stand at the precipice of destiny. As the
Captain
strategic
Luna stepped
apex
beside
species, we will guide the
Pangaea,
cosmos.
So, she asked softly, how did the council take it? Ray exhaled slowly. They finally understand us. And he smiled faintly. They're a little scared. Luna grinned. Good. Ray looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, bigger threats would come faster, stronger, maybe smarter, but humanity had already proven something important. You don't have to be the biggest predator in the galaxy. You just have to be the one that never stops.